Welcome to another episode of Startups for the Rest of Us. I'm your host, Rob Walling, and in this episode, I sit down with Wes Bush. He is one of the key proponents of the product-led growth movement as the author of 2 books on the subject, Product-Led Growth, How to Build a Product That Sells Itself, and the Product-Led Playbook, How to Unlock Self-Serve Revenue and Dominate Your Market with a Tiny Team. I wanted to have Wes on the show today because I think there are a lot of misconceptions and a lot of myths around what product-led growth actually is. And I wanted to talk with Wes, obviously one of the foremost experts on this topic, to really try to peel away myth from fact and really get to the heart of product-led growth, why you might want to consider it, and when it's a good idea, when it's not. Before we dive into our conversation, MicroConf Mastermind Matching happens 3 times a year, and it's happening right now. Applications close on December 4th, so just a week or 2 after this episode goes live. Masterminds have been critical to my development and, frankly, my longevity as an entrepreneur, and I've been a proponent of them for probably 12 or 13 years. You can go to startupsfortherestofus.com and search for Startup Mastermind and find the first time that I ever mentioned it on the show. And it's a long time ago because I became a believer in meeting with like-minded founders over time, a small group of founders who really followed my journey almost like honorary co-founders. So if you've been feeling alone or isolated or lost, or like you're just not sure what to do next and you need some accountability and someone else to be in the trenches alongside you, head to microconf.com/masterminds. You pay a one-time fee, and we will match you up with other like-minded founders. And with that, let's dive into my conversation with Wes. Wes Bush, thanks so much for joining me on the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk about product-led growth with you. For longtime listeners of the show, they know I have a love-hate relationship with the term product-led growth because I like shorthand terms. Like even product market fit, I feel the same way. It's like, oh, if I say that and we kind of both know what that means, it can be thousands of words encapsulated in that. The problem is when I say product market fit, if there's 10 of us in a room, there's 10 different definitions of it. And I feel like product-led growth is a bit like that and sometimes misused, especially by like developers who just want their product to sell itself. Do you find that in your role as you're an ambassador, you've written 3 books on product-led growth. Do you find that as well?
Oh, totally. And like one of the most viral tweets that got like a ton of retweets and stuff was like, product-led growth is just like an effing free trial. It's like, oh, okay. There's a lot of people that think that.
Yeah.
So it was like, interesting.
So I want to start by letting people know you've written 3 books on product-led growth. So you are certainly, of all the guests I've had on this podcast, probably the person who knows the most about it, and who has thought the most about it. You have the Product-Led Playbook. You have Product-Led Growth, that title, and Product-Led Onboarding.
Randomly, John did write that one. I just wrote the first chapter. But
okay. Well, thanks. Thanks for the clarification.
Yeah, no worries.
I'd love to start by let's do the best job we can at really defining what product-led growth is. So I'll kick it to you. You say what you think it is, and then I'm going to say like, well, is this product-led growth? Is it, just so we can kind of tease it apart because I have my own internal definition of what it is. I'm not even sure it's right. So talk us through PLG.
Yeah, and I think where a lot of people get confused is it's like they're thinking of like one dimension of like, oh yeah, that's like product-led growth, whereas it's like a multi-dimensional thing that impacts your entire business. So here's a fun way of thinking about it is product-led growth is when you use your product to acquire new customers, engage them, meaning getting them to value, and also monetizing. And you could also take that to expanding customers as well, but it's where you're using your product throughout your entire go-to-market motion. It's not just the free trial for people to sign up for free, but it helps them get to value, also upgrades them, and you can use it for expansion as well. And so at the surface, that's what it is in its simplest way. And you were talking about like different examples of it, what it looks like. I'll use some like non-software as a service examples like cologne, perfume. I think those are great examples of PLG in like the real world where it's like, hey, I can try it before I buy it. And that's really, I think, a core tenet of it. It's got to have that experience where like, okay, I tried it for free. I like it.
Oh, I like that example of cologne because I'd never thought of it. To me, when I hear PLG, I'm just like SaaS. SaaS and software, right?
Yeah.
Self-serve, freemium, these things all come to mind. But that's kind of cool to hear an example of a real world product. So now I want to ask you some questions and say, like, is this product-led growth or is it not? So my last SaaS startup was called Drip. It's still functioning here in town, downtown Minneapolis. And we had a self-serve trial, credit card up front. And we had, for now, we had no free plan. Later we did. So we're going to get a lot of examples out of this. But no free plan. Put a credit card up front. You get a trial for whatever it was, 14, 21 days. Inside the app, there was a bunch of onboarding stuff. There were videos and, kind of like, hey, do this next, right? And you got emails to come and engage and do this next. And then if you got fully set up, then you got to choose if you canceled your trial or if your credit card got charged at the end, basically. I always thought of that as to me, I just say, well, that's self-serve SaaS, right? That it existed since, Basecamp is self-serve SaaS. And I had Hittail in 2010, 2011 that was self-serve SaaS, and it all followed that model. But would you include that under the umbrella of PLG?
Well, here's a qualifying question first. Were users that were signing up able to get to value for free? Like they could, like in Drip's case, like send a lot of emails and really feel like, okay, I got the value from the product, could do something interesting in the product that I couldn't do before.
Yes, and that was included in the trial itself, right? It truly was a free trial, and yes, they could do everything in terms of uploading subscribers, sending emails, getting the value that the product offered.
Yeah, so that would be an example where it's like, yes, I would consider that product-led. Now, I'm going to try and confuse everybody here for a second and give an example of a company that does have a free trial, but is not product-led, because it's not always the same case. So this company is called ZoomInfo. A lot of people know about them.
Yep.
You can sign up for the free trial, and it's actually more of a request a free trial. And then you get to you fill out your info, and it's like book a call. You got to go through this whole experience, and everything from the second you fill out that form is like convert. Let's convert them and let's get them on the phone and convert them. So there was no value exchange. There was no kind of try before I buy experience. So you can actually have a free experience, free trial, but if every bone in that company, as soon as you sign up, is like, convert them, no, that's still like just using a different mousetrap. At the end of the day, what the biggest change is between like what I would classify as more of a sales-led company versus a product-led one really comes down to, if you think of like, if you oversimplify a go-to-market motion, there's really three things that go on in any business. There's like acquisition, there's monetization, you got to make customers, and then there's like the overall engagement, like delivering on the value. Now, a traditional sales-led company, it's like you acquire them, then it kicks off the monetization side of things. Then it's about engagement, delivering on the value. The big change in like product-led growth and product-led companies is just that middle piece, it switches. So it goes from acquisition to engagement. You deliver value before you purchase, and then it's monetization. And so whenever you're thinking like, is this a sales-led or product-led company, just refer back to that, because that is probably the easiest way to kind of see, oh, okay, is that truly a product-led company or not?
So it's engage, monetize are swapped, is what you're saying.
Exactly.
That's interesting. Okay, let me ask you this then. There's a company called SparkToro. Have you heard of it? Rand Fishkin's company?
Yeah, definitely.
And I'm an investor there. I'm friends with Rand. They have a try it free button on their website. When you click it, you do self sign up for an account. You enter your username and password, or I think you can auth in through Google. And then what you do is you get it's a really limited free plan. In essence, you get 5 searches a month, so very limited. And I believe you only get the top 3 or 4 results or 5 results when there might be hundreds, right? And if you're a paying customer, you can get all the data. And for folks who don't know about SparkToro, the H1 is how do you get better ROI from content, SEO, social, PR, and performance marketing. SparkToro is basically an audience research tool for marketers. So with that stage set of how I just described kind of this free, it's even a stretch to say it's a freemium plan because it is quite limited. But what is that? Is that product-led growth? Because it's definitely not, they're not doing sales. So does that by default mean they're product-led growth?
Yeah, in theory, like that's the free motion. They have that. I think that's definitely in the right direction. The only thing where I would be like, okay, like, is that the right thing they're giving away free? Is like, could someone sign up for that and feel like they genuinely got some insight that was really meaningful to them. Now, if they can check the box on that, it's like, hey, that's like a great free motion. And yeah, I would still classify that as like product led. You're giving away free. But what separates a great free model from one that's just mediocre and not many people convert at the end of the day is it all comes down to like, what is the outcome of that free product? Does it have one? Like very similar products we're working with one of our clients, it's like for trade opportunities, like if for export import businesses, so like they, let's say, are trying to find like the best basmati rice exporter. And it's like, it shows the database. You know what? They only need to find one. They need to find one deal that's really incredible. And what we decided to give away for free is like, hey, finding that is free. Now, if you want to contact them, then you got to upgrade at that specific stage. Now, it doesn't seem like it's a lot, but it's enough. It's enough for them to feel like they walk away from that experience saying, hey, if I need to find another export-import business, I know exactly where I got to go. And same thing with SparkToro. It's like, as long as they find like out of those top 4 or 3 options, something's meaningful, then it's enough. But that's the tricky part too, because if you search and you waste those 5 searches on something you don't find anything useful, then people are like, this product sucks.
Right. And I kind of asked a question without asking a question with my last prompt, which is sales-led is what, maybe the Jason Lemkin playbook, I think of it, where it's just like a lot of outbound and it's just this, you build up this big sales force, the boiler room, as they say. And you obviously have inbound, you try to do inbound, and anybody who comes inbound, it's like do a demo, put them through the sales funnel, right? Versus product-led, what you're saying is, well, that's more of the product provides the value. I feel like that's a false dichotomy. I feel like there's more nuance to this whole story than that. And in fact, coming back to Drip, we did both of those things. Now, we did outbound. It was not a huge motion, but we had a ton of inbound because I'm a better marketer than a salesperson, let's put it that way. So we had a ton of inbound just from all the stuff we were doing. And what we noticed was on the lower end, if someone was going to pay us $50 a month or $100 a month, those were our cheapest plans. It had to be product led. We weren't going to do a demo. We were, just the ACV, the LTV was not there for it. But we'd see someone come through and it'd be like, oh, this is someone it's a website that that if I said the name of, you would know. And it's like, well, I'm sure they have 1 million subscribers and they're probably going to pay us $3,000 a month. So then we would reach out to them and we're like, we need to get on the phone with you because we know that we can help close the deal, right? So I call that a dual funnel now, right? Where there's lower end and the higher end and you handle them differently. So I guess, were we sales-led or were we product-led? Or would you just say, well, you're both?
Yeah, that's both hybrid. And that's great motion to have if you can do that. Like if you're only like product, let's say is like $10 per month and something like that, it's like, okay, it probably doesn't make sense, even if that company did sign up, because there's not that expansion opportunity where you can make it work. But no, I love those motions. And I think that's using the best of both worlds, where it's saying, hey, if you're a small company, here, self-serve, do that. And if you're a bigger company, hey, there's a different approach. And we could actually maybe even position that instead of just like, hey, want to hop on a call with me? It's like, hey, I know you have like a big list. How can we create email marketing strategy together that is going to be so much better than what you're currently doing? And they're like, man, this Drip company is like really looking out for me outside of just, looking for another place to send emails. They're a value added partner here. Absolutely. Like $3,000 per month, that seems like a no-brainer deal to get this advice too.
Hiring senior developers can really move the needle in your business, but if you bring on the wrong person, you can quickly burn through your runway. If you need help finding a vetted, senior, results-oriented developer, you should reach out to today's sponsor, Lemon.io. For years, they've been helping our audience find high-quality global talent at competitive rates, and they can help you too. Don't just take my word for it. Listener Dylan Pierce had this to say about working with Lemon.io. The machine learning engineer they helped me hire was very professional and even learned a new tech stack to set up an environment to train and deploy machine learning models. He documented his work clearly so I could train it in the future with additional data. I'm super happy with the results. And longtime listener Chaz Yoon hired a senior developer from Lemon.io and said his hire, quote, definitely knew his stuff, provided appropriate feedback and pushback, and had great communication, including very fluent English. He really exceeded my expectations. Chaz said he'd definitely use Lemon.io again when he's looking for a senior level engineer. To learn more and get a 15% discount on your first 4 weeks of working with a developer, head to lemon.io/startups. That's lemon.io/startups. So let's talk a little bit about product-led growth. And I think a lot of people think freemium, you have to have freemium. And you're basically like, no, like a free trial, as long as you get value out of the product and that's engaging and monetizing, that is a qualifier. You can still be included in the PLG Hall of Fame if we're a paid or a free trial. That makes, oh no, it's the monetization has to be after, so it can't be a paid trial.
Yeah,
it has to be free.
Yeah, so the free model you choose actually doesn't matter. So if you look at like $1 billion plus product-led companies, you'll find every company with like, whether it's a free trial, freemium model, usage-based trial, they're all out there. What does matter though is deciding what is the main outcome of your free model. So what could you actually do when you sign up for that free product? And is it actually something that feels like it's tangible value for that user? A lot of times, like I'll sign up for a free trial as an example, and you click around, you do a couple things, you're like, whoopee, like I can't do anything I couldn't do before. There is no transformation. And the best product-led companies, they all have somewhat of a transformation where it's like, hey, before ChatGPT and after ChatGPT, it's like, it's pretty clear, like there was a difference there in productivity and all those other things. So you got to have that. You got to allow your product to shine in that free experience. And so I could like go on a whole big tangent, Rob, go through like, how do you actually decide what to give away for free? But I just wanted to point that out, that the model doesn't matter as much as people think it is. It's what that outcome is. And deciding what that is really the tricky part.
It's interesting because with bootstrappers, which the majority of this audience is folks who are bootstrapping or mostly bootstrapping, frankly. I mean, there's 20 or 30% who want to raise funding or have raised some type of funding, but it's just the non-venture track, SaaS founders is kind of the listeners of this audience. We've just always done product-led. That's just what we did from the start because I wasn't good at sales demos. I wasn't going to do a bunch of outbound. My SaaS 2009, 2010, 11, it was marketing. And since I was charging early SaaS companies I had with 10, 20, 40 a month, so really low end, and then 50, 100, 200 with drip, I couldn't afford to do anything but build onboarding into the app because I had to operate at a scale that it just required that. And I wasn't going to be able to manually onboard. So I acquired through SEO content, a bunch of other demand gen. And then I engaged in the product because I was a developer. And that's the only way to automate it to the point where I could have 500 or 1,000 customers, in order to get to tens of thousands of dollars a month in MRR. And then, of course, monetization, it was always just a free trial to monetize. So it really sounds like the default for most bootstrappers is probably going to be product-led. Is that accurate?
So I think the mindset of them wanting to go this direction is, but then there's very few folks where that is like, hey, this is what I want to do. And I'm actually seeing really good success with it. Because I think folks like yourself where you have just naturally done it is actually really rare. There's like, for every one of you, there's probably like 10 others that are like, yeah, I want that too. Yet when I try and do the product-led thing, I suck at it, or it just doesn't work out the way I thought it was. The free to paid conversion rate's really bad. And because users can't get the value, they just don't upgrade. So there's a host of other reasons why it usually doesn't work. But yeah, I'd say like generally speaking, they do want that specific direction because they see that is the most efficient way to scale this business without adding people and more cost to the equation.
And I think one of the annoying things for me with PLG is that people have misused it. And I see makers and developers being like, it means I don't have to market because the product just sells itself. And it's like, I don't think any product really sells itself. I mean, again, it sounds like I've been running, all my SaaS was PLG, and yet it never sold itself. I marketed the shit out of that stuff. I drove a lot of traffic. I did a lot of split testing, a lot of conversion optimization. I optimized the hell out of the funnels, the onboard, like all of that was a massive thing. Before like growth hacking was a thing, I was doing all of it because it was like, well, I know I want these numbers to go up. I know I want trial to pay to go up. How do I do that? Well, I got to get more people onboarded. How do I do that? Well, I need more people to, install the JavaScript snippet on my thing. So how do I do that? And I just it was just a very logical flow, right? But do you feel like is it just me? Or do you feel like some devs, maybe especially builder types, maybe misuse the term?
Oh yeah, and I think the biggest like re-education we a lot of times do at ProductLed is just the fact that it's like, hey, you still have to market this, you still have to sell it, and have like really good understanding of what that looks like. There's very few companies, like I've interviewed hundreds of ProductLed founders where I'm like, one out of maybe 300 has a situation where their product does market itself really, really well, but that is because they were super intentional about how that product was going to interact with other people. Like Mixmax is a perfect example. When I was interviewing the CEO, Olaf, he was like, you know what, we have a $0 cost per acquisition cost. I was like, this is pretty fantastic. But it's like, you send an email powered by Mixmax. I'm like, oh, you got this beautiful growth lever, external virality. Like how many companies have that? Most companies just have internal virality where it's like, hey, share this with your other employees and other users. That's not going to get you that crazy, marketing growth and user signups that you want. But every once in a while, you do find a company where it's like, that really worked for them. And you just hope that that might be your company.
Right. But as you're saying, it's one out of hundreds.
Yes.
Slack was used often as an early example of PLG. Would you say they're similar? Because it did feel like there's a viral loop in Slack that kind of became associated with like product-led growth means that you infiltrate an org and then they invite a bunch of people and there's virality. And it doesn't sound like that's what we're talking about. It sounds like they had that extra bonus of being one out of a few hundred where it could kind of market itself.
Yeah, well, Slack had like really fantastic internal virality. Like you just think of the natural side of like, okay, Rob's not on this installation. Like, let's add Rob. And it's like, sure, he's on our team. So why not? And it just naturally gravitates towards that. But since it was such a good product and did it so much better than email in a lot of ways, then it just naturally kind of grew out from that from word of mouth. But they did invest. If you still look at their P&L, majority of their expenses are still going towards marketing and sales, which is fascinating to kind of see that. And maybe that shouldn't be the case right now since their acquisition and now their product has just kind of stayed stagnant, but it's worth considering. Yes, invest in marketing and sales. It does not mean being a product-led business. You don't have to do that.
That's, I think, probably the biggest point I want to drive home today for people listening is I think there's a lot of perhaps misunderstanding or miscommunication around it. So then it begs the question, what are the big benefits of product-led growth as opposed to sales-led, the big benefits that you see?
It really just comes down to, do you want to have a leveraged business where it's like the asset you're building is the product? As you scale up, you get more and more efficient, you get more profits, can afford to have like a higher revenue per employee, all that fun stuff. Or do you want the people to be the machine in the business? And so many folks, it's like, actually, I want more leverage in the business. And so that's the biggest thing. It just comes down to leverage at the end of the day.
And you mentioned to me offline before we started that you actually have something you'd like to give to the listeners. What do you have?
Yeah, so I just wrote the product-led playbook, which at the very beginning of this book, I'm like, hey, you know what? This is not the book for you if you don't know if product-led growth is right for you. Like that's the first one I wrote, product-led growth. This one is literally just, here's how you actually do it. It goes through like 9 core pieces that you got to implement inside your business, like onboarding, pricing. It just gives you the exact frameworks for how to do it and the templates. So it's all free for you. productledgift.com, and you can just get that for free. And that's the entire book. We held nothing back there.
Awesome. Well, thanks for that. I hope folks check it out. So I have 1 or 2 questions for you before we wrap up. And I think I want to frame, because I'm looking at an outline of the book. I have a table of contents and stuff. In chapter 6, how to decide what to give away for free versus what to monetize. It's such a good conversation. And frankly, this is a common one I have with my investments. I'm invested in 212 SaaS companies through Tiny Seed and then individually. And so I see the gamut. Freemium or not freemium, a free trial of sales-led, product-led, like the whole deal. And frequently I'm pulled into conversations. A lot of it's pricing strategy. And then it's, here's currently what we have. What should we, and I'm always like, I have my own kind of mental pattern matching framework, but I've never like written it. I don't even know if I could put it into words, So I'm curious, like I know you can't, read the whole chapter 6, but like, what's the base framework there?
Yeah, I think this would be more fun too. If you tell me about a company that you know really well, that they were struggling with this. And we can like workshop it. And as people listen, this will be like 5 minutes and we could go through that framework.
Cool. And is this a free trial or is it freemium in this example?
No, it could be anything. You pick the company, I'll use the framework and then people will kind of learn through that.
All right. So let's talk about frequent podcast guest Derek Reimer. He runs a company called SavvyCal. They are a competitor to Calendly, and they have a free trial, or it's a 30-day money-back guarantee. Let's pretend they had a 30-day free trial to because they're PLG. But they do have a money-back guarantee, so that's in essence what they're trying to do. They do not have a freemium, a free forever plan.
Okay. So thanks for that. I got their website pulled up. And now, who is their ideal user? Like the person they feel like, hey, we got to just target this person. They're the best people.
So they actually have a couple, my understanding, or there were early adopters that were like listeners to this podcast, that type, like bootstrappers and like founders of bootstrap companies. I think they made a shift as the audience grew or as their customer base grew, and they started getting like calendar power users. So which I think are a lot more salespeople.
Okay. So first off, this is why it's so hard. And this is for everybody listening. If you don't know without 100% confidence who your ideal user is, and like I'm on the website too, it's not just you, Rob, like it's not clear. Who is this for? I don't know, because like in the world of calendar booking systems, it's commoditized right now. There's Calendly, there's like TidyCal. If I want to pay $49 once, sure. And like there's a ton of different options out there. And like Book Like a Boss, like they have a very specific persona on like service professionals and stuff. So that would be the first kind of task. I'd be like, okay, get really clear. Let's go with a salesperson though, because that's more fun. And so let's say it's salespeople. Now, what is like ultimate success for that salesperson? Like we got to get super clear on that. What would you say that looks like? Even if we're just making it up on the spot a bit.
Ultimate success with that it's a complete, like super seamless booking experience for their prospects.
Yep. And now if we think about this space, unless you've been living under a rock, you've probably heard of Calendly. So what is like the unique sauce that they might bring to the table that's like, hey, this is unique, differentiated for people that are sales reps that are trying to just book easier?
Yeah, it's not on the website now, but the early positioning of SavvyCal was most booking links, there's a power differential, and it can be offensive to send your booking link because it's like, oh, now you put a bunch of work on my shoulder.
Right. Yeah.
Yep. Oh, really? Now I got to click around, blah, blah, blah. And that was SavvyCal's early positioning so I'm going to go with that. But the differentiator between them and Calendly is the booking experience itself is very much does everything you can do with amazing UX to remove that feeling.
Okay. So let's say for the salesperson, we have like, I'm pulling up a stat out of thin air here, but like it's 30% more meetings booked with your ideal prospects just because the experience is better and everything else. So like that's success. We're trying to gear people towards that. Now, if we think about making this a game, this is where we get to the model part. Let's like divide this up into 3 levels. There's like your beginner level, which is like, think about it as like the newbie. They sign up, they're like, oh yeah, like let's go through this, see what it's all about. Then there's like your intermediate level. This is like your first paid pro plan. And there's the advanced level, which is like your most expensive stuff. So for that like initial beginner one, what might that like beginner outcome be? Is it like enough for it to just be, hey, book 1 meeting with the prospect? Is it like 5 meetings, 10 meetings? What do you think that might be for them?
Probably 1. I think it's just that initial meeting.
Okay. So it could literally just be 1 meeting. Now, if they do a test or something like that, that might be a bit tricky where it's like, okay, they did the test meeting on their own.
I see. Oh, I was thinking 1 meeting with each prospect. You're just saying, yeah, the absolute value. At what point would they, that's interesting. I don't, because let's say they booked 5 meetings, right? 5 prospects book meetings or 5 book meetings overall. You can do that with there's no differentiation. You could do that with any calendar software. So it would almost, to me, be like the moment that someone complimented me and said, holy shit, that was a really great booking. That would be the moment where I'd be like, oh, someone noticed that it was different. I don't know if that can be a qualifying event or not, but.
Yeah, and this is the tricky part, right? Because it's the special secret sauce, whatever makes your product shine, needs to come out in that free version. And if it's just like 1 meeting booked, so what? It doesn't pass the hurdle. And so this is one of the challenges when you're thinking about what to give away for free. if you're in a very saturated space with a lot of competitors that already have like really good free motions. And so you have to be creative, like what is that new experience? And so I would, like you said, it has to go back to like, did they, maybe it's a customer or somebody that booked that meeting, have that experience where they said, wow, like this is fantastic. Could we track it? I would start going down that rabbit hole and say, okay, it's in this like direction. We don't know it exactly. We got to validate what that looks like, but it's something when they have this experience, they book 30% more meetings, that they can feel the tangible difference of, you know, when I was using Calendly, I was getting blocked a lot of times. People weren't booking meetings. They felt bad about it. Whereas with SavvyCal, now I have a story. And that story is now actually going to be in their head, the user's head, and they're going to tell themselves that story when they're like, this is why I'm buying SavvyCal today, because it makes so much more sense than the other alternatives. They just don't get me like that. But if you start off with that vague ideal user, it's so much harder because everything that you give away for free should be tied back to who is that ideal user? What is that ultimate success? And that's how you build an intentional free model, not just give away random
Right. Just pick it off a dartboard. That's cool. And my apologies to Derek Reimer, who certainly is hearing this and absolutely cringing at all my answers. Because you know how when you're the founder of the company, he knows all the answers to these, and I'm kind of like, I'm going to make this one up because I'm not sure if it's exactly right. So no, that was super cool, man. Thanks for leaning into that, the thought experiment there. If folks want to check out the book, obviously productledgift.com, or they can head to productled.com/playbook, or frankly on Amazon. Your book is available in all the formats folks would want to find it. Wes Bush, thanks so much for joining me on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
If folks want to keep up with you on X Twitter, you are Wes_Bush.
Yep.
And productled.com if they want to check out all the stuff you're up to. Thanks again, man.
This was fun.
Thanks again to Wes for joining me on the show today. And thank you for listening this week and every week. This is Rob Walling signing off from episode 741.